Everything you said we already knew, more or less.
Well, here's something that you didn't know.
My name is John Bratsis. I'm Associate Director of University Applications, which basically covers any software application here at Quinnipiac University. The great majority of them that are known to the masses here would probably be Blackboard, email, MyQ, mobile app, and the big one that we use, which is our ERP, which is called Ellucian Colleague. And in this ERP exists information about all our faculty, all our staff, all our students, and personal secured attributes that we use to populate things like ePortfolio, Blackboard. So if there's an application, my group has a hand in making sure the appropriate data is being passed. The other hat that I wear, I'm also a professor of information systems here as well. And some of the courses I teach are Computer Information Systems 101 and also CIS 125, which is basically database analysis and design. And how do you take a conceptual idea and basically turn it into a case study and a reality potentially if you want to pursue it. So a little background of me, my teaching hat, and also my professional hat and what I do.
Interesting. All right. So prior to becoming a professor at Quinnipiac, what did you do?
So before being a professor here, I worked at General Electric for about 2 years, and basically I was an ERP analyst, and also I was had a role in their supply chain management. So basically different types of materials that had to be brought to sites, would they be sourced appropriately at the right price at the right time to make projects happen. And in doing so, I became acclimated with a lot of different types of technologies, some modern, most archaic, to be honest. And it's a problem of modern corporations and businesses where these older technologies are out there and they're pretty cumbersome to use, right? So it isn't much of a point of what the technology has to offer in terms of its use, but how you understand the data and the particular opportunities there are to modernize these technologies so that a broader spectrum of individuals can use them. So I started off there, and then started doing my own consulting, computer and IT consulting for many years, and then basically got my start here at Quinnipiac University working at the help desk, moving my way up through something called the FLASH group, which stood for Frontline Administrative Support Help. So if the president's office or some high-level administrative offices had issues that they needed rectified immediately, I had to go there and figure them out and troubleshoot them.
Wow, okay, high pressure then.
High pressure, especially when you're dealing with certain individuals and things at a timeline. So that was good exposure, and the biggest thing, it allowed me to get acclimated and accustomed to the business processes that make an organization run, whether it's Quinnipiac, whether it's General Electric, whether it's the businesses that I'm consulting for and so forth. So, and then after that, I moved into the role of an application analyst, so kind of like all the applications I kind of brought up before, being Blackboard, the mobile web app, Ellucian Colleague, Knowledge Base, and we can go on and on. Knowing the back end of those things and how data is passed and to make it usable, and to the eventual transition and migration to the role that I am now, Associate Director of University Applications, which anything existing and new as we expand, how do we implement that? How do we make it usable? A lot of things we talk about throughout the course of our class.
Definitely. Now you mentioned the business systems. I think a lot of people have this this misconception that whenever you have to deal with technology, it turns into like a depiction of like the Matrix, where it's just binary code and whatnot. How would you say your perception of it is?
That's a great question to ask. And that is completely false. It's not just ones and zeros and things that are indecipherable, right? The biggest role in information technology today, right, is that of something we call the business analyst, right? And the business analyst is basically a person who sits right in the middle of the programmers and the actual administrators.
Like a liaison.
Exactly. Perfect. Liaison who's in the middle of those programmers and administrators. Exactly. The difference with that person in the middle is they have an understanding of technology to a point where they can kind of speak on the behalf of the programmers in a way, in a context that isn't boring or mind-numbing, right? And translate it to those everyday users that are in the system that make the business run, whether it's through admissions, or whether it's, if you're in a company or business, through invoicing or client outreach or whatever. And then that business analyst takes the needs from the administrators, translates them to the programmers, and kind of is that intermediary to get results. So with that being said, it's not really, I do apologize for that, it's not really about the ones and zeros. It's about truly understanding what data is being passed, how is it used, how is it scheduled, what times is certain data reporting needed to make informed decisions. So while the matrix looks cool and it fills up a screen and in high def, you can only imagine, it's far from the truth. It's having an intimate understanding of a process that makes an organization or business run.
So to be this liaison, so to speak, what kind of skills would you say one has to possess to do essentially what you do?
So to be that business analyst, to be that liaison that can speak to both sides, first of all, you have to have great social skills. And to be quite honest with you, a lot of times when I teach in class and I say the number one thing I want you to get out of this class is having a level of comfort and a level of social skills that will allow you to be effective in teams. And people look at me like, he can't be serious, that's too straightforward, that's too easy. Well, it's really what we're looking for, because if you can interface and interact with someone who's a pure programmer, who looks at things very analytically, very mathematically, and maybe doesn't have, and which isn't always the case, but maybe doesn't have those skills to really open up an end user and understand how they use a system or what they need or how they can make it work. If you can't be social enough and comfortable enough to kind of mesh with both of those sides, you won't be effective in this role. So social skills are number one. The second thing I would say is responsibility from a project management standpoint. So in university applications, one of the biggest and newest things that we've rolled out within the department is self-service. And in doing so, there were certain timelines we had to meet, and there were certain criteria that had to be satisfied. So we had to make sure that those dates and times were met with the aid of the programmers and the administration to test, implement, and put in place. So project management, social skills, and also the ability to think outside of the box. So solutions in technology aren't really cut and dry. They're kind of like a Sudoku puzzle to a degree, right? You have to find the right number to make it fit, but sometimes you might think about other things in the process that might fit somehow in a different way or different context. So thinking outside the box is definitely helpful as well. So I would say those are my top three.
Interesting. So would you say any position, so say you're more on the business end, you're in the middle or more towards the IT, what would you think would have like the competitive advantage when applying for like a leadership role, if you will?
So a competitive advantage in terms of going for a role of leadership, I think you're aiming towards maybe a CIO or maybe a director or what have you. Basically, strong project management skills. I would say the ability to translate the value add. Why implement a system? Why implement a product or service? What is it going to give us, right? So I know I keep going back to self-service as an example, but self-service was a wonderful, wonderful application for us to continue to fortify and grow because it allowed us to give the students the ability to plan their course schedules ahead of time, go in and grab exactly what they want if it's available, and if not, to have a fallback strategy or plan with alternate schedules, and to kind of get a heartbeat as to where they are academically with credits, academic performance, GPA. So translating that value add to the individuals you're looking to serve or looking to sell the product if you're more in the business sector of it is important. If you could do those two things and sound enthusiastic about it, then those are the three attributes that would bolster your chances and opportunity of getting a role of leadership, and whatever it may be in terms of a product and service or in terms of a roadmap for an institution or corporation.
I'm kind of picking up on, instead of really focusing in on, I guess, your perspective on the situation, you mentioned the users. How important would you say it is encompassing others, I guess, through the process of, I guess, creating something?
Great questions, and I really mean that. So the users are the most important element. Quite frankly, if you don't have a user base, you don't have a purpose. You don't have a reason to design a solution, a business process, an application to satisfy a need. So understanding the users are very, very important. We work closely with many different vendors, whether it's Blackboard, whether it's Ellucian, whether it's Microsoft, in ways that they've done market research to understand the users, and they listen to our findings, whether it's through focus groups or whether it's through feedback we receive through surveys or through working with SGA or with others to kind of understand, hey, what do our end users, what do our constituents look for? So they're the most important piece of the puzzle. And if you don't satisfy the need of the users, you will hear about it. Yeah, that's the bottom line. So, we'll look at things, and again, this is no dig on anyone who has a particular operating system or what have you, but in general, it's a pretty fair assumption or pretty safe to say that Windows Vista and Windows 8 did not serve the needs of customers as expected. It worked, but it wasn't as elegant as Windows 7 or Windows 10 became, right? And what did Microsoft do? They retooled their product offering with the feedback they received, and they made a better operating system time and time again. So without users, their wants, needs, desires, and feedback, you basically have no purpose in this realm because there's nothing to produce, and you won't be able to continue to evolve and move forward and make better products and technology. I think some of the best of breed companies doing it right now, listening to the feedback of consumers, being Microsoft and being Apple, constantly continuing to innovate and so forth, and even Facebook with their financial weight, hopping in things such as the unknown, Oculus Rift with virtual reality, things that you wouldn't think would go hand in hand with social networking, but they're immersing themselves to open the possibilities of what their customers are looking for. So, customers, number one, in my opinion.
Would you say their reach out really has to do with how large they are of a company and how, I guess, their audience per se has grown as well? How big of a factor would you say that is?
It is big. It's staggering. So, depending on the size of the audience you serve, how can you decide what's the best fit for everyone, right? And even in our course, we talk about things such as defining demographics to a degree. Forget about age, gender, geographical location, race, but how about things such as hobbies, interests, proficiencies, behaviors, right? And they're so vast and different. So what you have to do is create these segments, these market segments that encapsulate these behaviors or these defining demographics, and then formulate ways within your organization that you can satisfy each and every single one of those. And to your point, the bigger the organization gets, the more of a head-pounding experience it becomes. And even in retail, we look at retailers that are faltering right now, from Sears to JCPenney, and even those that are established giants such as Walmart that have to continue to tweak their approach. It's not just about saving money and providing value, right? It's about satisfying different shopping habits and needs. And Amazon is a big disruptor in terms of the way that they're trying to change things with 2-day shipping for Prime members. Eventually, they're opening a supermarket type of setting where there'll be no cashiers.
Yep. Oh, that blew my mind.
Absurd. I mean, amazing. And if it all works to plan, how does that technology then kind of foster and implement changes that we can't even imagine? So
exactly.
Yeah, so it is difficult. The bigger the audience, the bigger the potential headache.
Now, we mentioned a lot from companies in varying locations, I guess. What would you say you specifically, where your office is, quote unquote? Do you work more in the field, or is it more just in front of a computer?
So when I first started off at the help desk, and this is probably over a decade ago, it was in the field. So break fix, mechanical issues, to software issues, to network issues, to user input issues, right? Understanding, comprehension. So being out there in the field. Then with the Flash group, frontline administrative support help, same thing, field-oriented type of thing, but then a little bit more in the background. Well, student workers who are unable to punch in at a certain time, why isn't that working appropriately? And I would have to interface with the right individuals to get them engaged here. So my fellow coworkers who focus on that realm, let them know the issues, translate it as a business analyst, and their expertise can take over to turn that problem into a solution. In my current role, quite frankly, it's more office-based. It's more me in front of this screen fielding calls to our work order request system. Phone call like we just got a few moments ago, whether it be a particular application isn't working, or a student needs to be able to access self-service who's an admitted student but doesn't have the rights as of yet, or whatever.
Problem solving.
Problem solving, exactly. And the problem solving, as you continue to move up through the hierarchy or through your roles and positions in an organization, ends up becoming more mental than the physicality of going out there and physically
Really?
fixing
Okay.
things, for the most part. So in terms of understanding the business process, I have to understand exactly which activities and processes precede each other, and how they work in unison to get the end results, whether it's reports, whether it's access to a system, whether let's take a hypothetical. Let's say you want to get a head of game mark and you want to enroll for summer courses.
Right.
So come your senior year, you have less on your plate, which is a great strategy, but I'm not going to push it on you, okay? But let's say you want to do that. Well, you're hopping in and you're seeing that, gee whiz, I'm not within my summer courses as of yet. And you put a work order request in. And I see that and I say, okay, Mark Martino, let me look him up. Oh yes, he's enrolled in summer courses. Why isn't he there? Ooh, maybe I have to reach out to this department to look deeper into it. Ooh, maybe Mark isn't academically eligible. That's not the case, but we're giving hypotheticals.
Sure.
And we're working with the right departments and talent, again, business analyst role, to get the answers. So right now it's really desk heavy, phone heavy, meeting heavy, project management heavy, and also working with my team to make sure that work orders and the needs of our end users, students, faculty, staff are met. So it's kind of a nutshell synopsis, kind of jack of all trades or some things, I guess you could say.
So what got you interested in doing this? I know there's a plethora of I guess occupations one can do, but what got you to this point?
Okay, so I don't get that question a lot, so I would love to answer it. So back, I would say, in high school, I got one of my first computers, which was a tremendously underpowered machine. It was about 66 megahertz with, I would say, maybe 32 megabytes of RAM, and the hard disk was maybe 128 megabytes. 2x CD-ROM drive, and something called America Online with a phone connection. So it was tremendously slow, inefficient.
You'd appreciate the slowest day we have computers.
Oh, exactly. I mean, it's absurd to even think about, but it was the dawning of a new age and an interest in me.